So good morning, everybody. It's always great to be part of a hardware conversation, and as you've seen, hardware is very broad in its definition this morning. I'm responsible, as you heard, for the power business at IBM, but rest assured I have not spent my entire 30-year career on power. I've done everything from x86 servers to storage to mainframe, now to power. I'm in therapy, it's going okay. I've accepted the point I'm an infrastructure guy. I think it's an okay place to be, and I think that's where I'll hang out for the rest of my career. So listen, I want to talk about what I think is a pretty dramatic change going on in the IT industry. A dramatic change in terms of the way in which IT, in this case server infrastructure, is created. Now I want to start that discussion with what you've just been hearing, which is, and you know this, you guys are the contributors, the maintainers, the inventors, the owners of openness. Linux is everywhere. You just heard two great examples of that. Millions of smartphones, tablets that we all use every day, right? Billions, so I agree with Anthony on his number, billions of devices connected to the Internet of Things. What you may or may not be aware is, if you look at the mainframe, a platform that's been innovating now for 50 plus years, that runs your banks, your insurance, your governments, your telecommunications, the list goes on and on, nearly 80% of the top 100 of our mainframe clients around the world run Linux on the mainframe to serve your needs. So yes, in fact, Linux is absolutely everywhere. And as you know, it's everywhere because of the open collaboration model that it now brings. This model is about innovation. It's about no single company. It makes it always strange for IBM to say this, no single company owning the innovation agenda. We see this challenge, though, today in the server marketplace. You've probably all heard of Moore's Law, at least I suspect you have, right? This promise of delivering twice the performance every 2 years. Twice the performance every 2 years. It has historically been delivered by single companies working on silicon technology, CMOS technology to be precise. Well, I have bad news for you. That era has ended. No longer through silicon alone can applications hungry for data, hungry for performance, hungry for analytics insight, get that 2x performance benefit through silicon alone. So the problem the industry faces around servers is, what do? Do you give up and say, well, that was a fun run? Or do you find a new way to innovate? A new way to continue to drive that capability for applications. Again, applications still are hungry. In fact, I'd argue in the data-driven world we're in today, they're more hungry today than they were even a decade or 2 decades ago. They need threads, they need cores, they need performance, they need cache, they need memory, they need I/O throughput, they need bandwidth. They need all those things to deliver the answers you're all looking for every day at lightning speed. But we've got to solve this model. So we put our mind to this and we said, you know what? We at IBM have a long history of working with you. A long history of working in an open innovation spirit, right? It starts back with the Apache Foundation, but most of this has been around software. Most of it's been around software. Very recently, it's been around things like the Cloud Foundry, things like OpenStack and Open Daylight, things around virtualization with new technologies, if you look at Docker. We've never applied this approach to server infrastructure until today. So this journey for servers and IT openness started, I'd say, about 1.5 years ago. About 1.5 years ago, ourselves, Google, Mellanox, NVIDIA, and Tyan, a motherboard company, got together and said, you know what, we see this problem. We see this need in the server industry for no one company to own the innovation agenda. So we started talking. We shared a vision together, the 5 of us, around openness. And in August of last year, we announced the intent to form what we called the OpenPOWER Foundation. The intent to form. And in December of last year, it actually was formed, right? Standalone entity, you know how all of that works. Well, as I stand here today, I'm happy to share with you, where there are now over 50 companies and individuals around the world growing every week that are part of the OpenPOWER Foundation. It is about bringing the best technology from all of these companies together to continue to deliver on Moore's Law, continue to deliver that promise of year after year ongoing IT innovation. No one company, now 50, growing rapidly. And you can see it spans the gambit of technology spaces, from silicon, processor companies like IBM and others, taking the raw technology we've made available through licensing based on power, derivative rights, anybody can manufacture it, to motherboard companies, to server companies, to I/O accelerator companies, very important space. Accelerators are going to be super important to how we continue to deliver going forward this 2x performance. Software services, and finally consumers and universities. This list, I mean, my poor team has to keep changing this chart, I think, every couple of days as new icons come in, new companies, new individuals join. At the heart of it is the spirit of open innovation. That's what's founding this. That's what's driving this forward as we recognize that infrastructure absolutely matters in this new era of computing we find ourselves in. So based on that innovation, we announced IBM in April of this year a whole new set of products based on Power 8 technology, but targeted for the open market. We have Linux-only Power 8 servers, scale-out servers, 1 and 2 socket systems that are price competitive with anything else on the marketplace today. We've announced support for KVM and delivered KVM support across the platform. And we added to our existing distributions of SUSE and Red Hat, we added Canonical through a great relationship with Mark and his team. All of this bringing new capabilities, new choices to the marketplace. We'll continue to extend this portfolio here later this year with, again, more servers, more capability, more openness. Now, at the core of what's driving this, and I should have mentioned on the last slide, so we announced in April. We began shipping to the market with about 3 weeks left in second quarter. We're on a calendar quarter at IBM. We saw strong take-up. In fact, we were sold out across a bunch of these models through the 3 weeks of the second quarter period. And we saw well over nearly 20% of the servers we sold running Linux only. So great early adoption. If I look back at history to prior Power announcements, we had over 2x the adoption for a similar period with Power 8 servers from IBM based on openness than we've had in the past. Very, very strong interest from many of you and many of your colleagues in the marketplace. Now, what's enabling? What's at the core of this? Moving applications has always been the bear. Nobody likes to spend time, there's not a lot of value in porting things. And on Power in the past, we had the challenge of if you're down in the way in which memory bits are laid out, we were big Indian. Big Indian, little Indian, right? Neither's right, neither's wrong, they're just different. One's this way, if you think about it from a bit ordering, right? So it was a port. Well, now with the Power 8 servers, not only do we fully support our past, but we fully embrace the future. Linux on Power now is the same. It is little Indian Linux. KVM is the same. OpenStack to management is the same. The tooling is the same. So what we were able to demonstrate, myself and Mark Shuttleworth, actually Mark did the demonstration, I just stood next to him and tried to look smart, was the ability to rapidly move software running on an x86 onto Power. And he was able to demonstrate that on stage with MongoDB, WebSphere Liberty, and Hadoop. He picked up those binaries, moved them over, provisioned them on a Power platform in 3 minutes. So we've been able to demonstrate it in our own code. Obviously, IBM has a little bit of code, but also in industry code. So what used to take weeks and months to port, making sure, listen, if you're in banking, you don't want to get the memory bits right or wrong, right? That would be either good or bad, depending on which way it fell in your favor. You want it to be the same. And so now this ability for it to be the same is incredibly impactful, making interpreted languages, scripted languages, pick them up and move them over, no change required. C, C++, any languages that actually need to be compiled, we've seen less than 5% of those products actually have Indianness built into their code stack, less than 5%. And so 95% recompile, test, and go without change. This has completely changed the paradigm by which the marketplace looks at alternatives for where to run Linux. So a year ago, my head of development, Brad McCready, was here talking about the way in which we were putting into Linux, in this case on Power, our $2 billion investment. One of those areas, not the only one, of course, one of those areas was we were opening porting centers around the world. It started in Beijing, China, expanded to the USA and Austin, New York, followed by Tokyo, and then Montpellier, France. So 5. We had 5 porting centers open throughout the last several months. And they've been quite busy working with clients, partners, ISVs, developers, building new applications, bringing applications to Linux on the Power Platform. Well, I'm here to share with you today, based on that success, we're not standing still. We're now expanding this, call it 10x, around the globe to 50+ centers. 50+ centers where clients, partners, developers can go physically if they want to get access to education, get access to equipment, get access to demonstrations, get access to whatever you want around Linux on Power. Everywhere from Australia to Vietnam and many countries in between. Now over 50 places to go, 50. We think this will continue to fuel the innovation, continue to fuel the adoption of a very strong choice in the marketplace around technology. Now, some examples of the ecosystem. Right? I mentioned IBM committed to bring all of our thousands of software products that run on Linux on x86 today to also run and be optimized on Linux on Power. Now, personal mental note, it's never a good thing when your boss, in my case Steve Mills' picture is the smallest on the slide. I'm sure I'll hear about that later, but sorry Steve, so be it. That's Steve making that commitment earlier this year. Some of the bigger pictures you might notice on the right is Gordon McKean. Gordon's from Google. He's the chairman of the OpenPOWER Foundation, demonstrating what we finally call the Google motherboard. Developed by Google, leveraging Power 8 technology and the OpenPOWER Foundation for their consideration. Mark Shuttleworth I mentioned as well. Mark was with us as we announced the new partnership of running Ubuntu on Linux on Power, and that demonstration I referenced in terms of the rapid ability to pick up Mongo, WebSphere, and Hadoop and bring them over to run natively on Linux on Power. And then others across the bottom, from Sugar CRM and Chef, Sky SQL, right? We could have made the list longer and longer and longer, right? In terms of the ecosystem bringing their software, your software in many cases, right, to Linux on Power to bring this value to new buyers and new markets. So yes, this ecosystem is growing rapidly, and I hope you'll all, if you're not, get engaged. So let me start to wrap up a bit here. I get asked this question all the time. In the era of cloud, in the era of commoditization, does infrastructure still matter? I would tell you it matters more today than it ever did before. Now, it matters to perhaps to different people. It certainly matters to different people, but it absolutely matters more than ever today. And part of why it matters is back to that problem I stated at the beginning. The problem that in the server space, the long-running belief that a single company can drive the innovation agenda and deliver on Moore's Law, that principle is dead. Absolutely, fundamentally dead. And therefore, the only way going forward, applications that are processor hungry, memory hungry, storage hungry, data hungry, are going to continue to perform is through this open collaboration model. This ability to put together the best pieces to address a particular need for a particular client, a particular service provider, a particular industry, a particular country. So it will be absolutely grounded on openness and collaboration like you've never seen in the server market before, driven by this transition to the cloud, both on-premise and off-premise, and what we call hybrid, connecting those two worlds together. Because last I checked, most of those banks and insurance companies and telcos, they're not throwing their infrastructure in the river. They're looking at ways to expand it. They're looking at ways to leverage the cloud. They're not looking to throw it away. So they're looking to connect the worlds together, connect mobile with core, connect systems of engagement with systems of record. And at the core of this is data. Everything going on, everything we're all generating every moment we live these days is all grounded in data. And we are not short of data. It is the new natural resource that many countries, that many companies are wrapping their business model around. That's going to be true for our mainframe franchise, as well as our Power business and our OpenPOWER Foundation relationship. So, are other clients using this? Absolutely. From retail at Bon-Ton, where, as you can imagine, in the retail space, it's about flexibility of spiking up and down and keeping costs low. There's not a single retailer who doesn't wake up every day worrying about their cost infrastructure. To to our work with Watson. You're familiar with Watson, I hope, right? A couple years ago, it was a game show demonstration with Jeopardy. Today, we're bringing Watson to solve real issues around finance, around healthcare, around retail. MD Byline sells implantable devices. Fairly complicated sale, I think you'd all agree. Certainly, I don't want to buy the wrong implantable device. That could be bad, right? So MD Byline has worked closely with us, leveraging Watson on LinuxCon to solve issues and concerns around healthcare. How does one choose, in an intelligent manner, the right, or how does a doctor choose, not individuals, right? The right implantable device. We've got research going on with System Z at University of Arizona, College of Pharmacy, and similar research around analytics, bringing business insights to analytics with North Carolina State University. Now, Bon Appetit, again, a Watson example. Bon Appetit is leveraging Watson to create interesting food combinations. Interesting food combination, and cocktails, I might add, by the way, too. Some of them aren't bad. They're not bad. But it's about bringing together ingredients and mixing things together that, perhaps might not have been thought of before. Now, this is not getting Junior in the kitchen at 10 years old and say, hey, whip something up and let's see what it looks like. This is actually based on data. Trying to bring together things, again, that might not normally have been brought together. But you know what? When you look at the ingredients, you say, this should make a wonderful tasting drink or menu item. Bon Appetit, we've had the food truck at some of our events whipping out these things, and generally, people like them, except for the blue drink. I'm not sure about the blue drink. All right, Dundee. Dundee is city council, government. I mentioned government earlier. Again, this government has been running Linux on the mainframe, Linux on System Z now, for 10 years without interruption. 10 years of availability. If you remember, Linux on the mainframe has only been around since I launched it in 2000, close to 14, 15 years. So they were an early adopter, went in early, and they've seen the availability benefits of Linux on System Z for their government. So again, we're able to help when we see the benefits of this collaboration around openness. Openness of the software stack, openness of the applications, openness of the server infrastructure. I truly believe, as you can tell, we were at a tipping point in the industry. Tipping point in the industry around hardware and the way server infrastructure is innovated going forward. Tipping point. Right? We can continue down the path of believing one company owns the rights to creating that innovation agenda. I think that's wrong. And I think the fact that Moore's Law is dying makes this need to innovate together more now versus ever before. We form now with the 50+ members the OpenPOWER Foundation. Many of those companies joining OpenPOWER, as one example, are in China. And you just have to read the headlines to realize all the tremendous change going on in the China market in terms of the interest around data, protecting their data, but also a domestic IT agenda. How do countries build rapidly their own domestic IT agenda when they haven't had one before? You see those conversations again in press headlines between China, Russia, Turkey, France, Germany, the list goes on and on and on. Of course, the US as well, too. So openness in server infrastructure has been never more important than it is now. We've released through GitHub, I saw the banner at the back of the room, 400,000 lines of firmware code around the PowerA processor. Everything from booting to provisioning virtualization. Again, full transparency so that the industry can rally around this technology and the rally around openness. And finally, for those who want to not go to an IBM Innovation Center and tap into those 50+ centers, they want to do it via the cloud, right? A lot of people using the cloud for development these days. CytOx is one great example who is providing PowerA innovation and server access via the cloud free of charge for a period of time. And if you're part of the IBM Partner World Network, you can go in through an IBM Partner World Network. We too have provided through the Partner World Development Cloud a free OpenPOWER cloud for our developers to use. So again, there's access to power technology, OpenPOWER innovation through CytOx, through Partner World, and through our newly announced 50+ innovation centers. As I said a bit ago, you all are the heart and soul of the open movement. You've done it on software for years and years. It's second nature. You don't even think about it anymore. I'm challenging you all to join us. Join us and bring that same spirit of open innovation, as you heard from my prior two colleagues on stage here, Jonathan and Anthony, to the server business in the way in which we innovate together to drive real differentiation in the market. Because again, I'll close with, there's no more important time than now that infrastructure matters. So thank you all very much for bearing with me here for my 20 minutes with you. I'll be around. Happy to see you all. It's happy to be here. And with that, I think we're turning it back to our host, and we'll be going to a break. Thank you all very much.